There's a real danger for anyone in any field who is successful at their job. It's called burnout. I'm going to tell you a few really crazy stories about that. And working musicians, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's get to it. In the year 2000, I got a call to go do Shakira's first pop English language record in Miami. I went with Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums and Paul Bushnell on bass. They flew all of my gear. They air freighted all of my gear there. The studio was great. The Hit Factory, Criteria, famous place. Legendary engineer named Terry Manning, who did a bunch of ZZ Top records. I was excited about that. So we worked 10 days. We would get there at 11 a.m. in the morning, work with her co-writer till 3 p.m. She would come at 3:30, and work 12 hours longer. So we worked from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day. Back at the hotel by 3:30 in the morning, wound up. You can't be flooring it at 3 in the morning and go back to the hotel and just fall asleep. So we would fall asleep around 6 a.m., get 3.5 hours of sleep, and go do it again. Now, my wife came to visit, but she left after 2 days because we realized we weren't going to get to see each other. And indeed, I would walk out to the beach, which was beautiful, for about 5 minutes before the car collected us and took us to the studio. I also almost never took vacations. I am not alone in this. Many musicians were in the same predicament. If I was on vacation, I wouldn't tell a soul. If somebody called me, I would say, I'm really busy. I could do it next week. Can you wait? If they couldn't wait, I would make a decision. One time I was visiting my dad. Trevor Horn called. It was the Pearl Harbor soundtrack, the end title with Faith Hill. Had to be there for Trevor. Cut the vacation short. My dad was disappointed, but he understood. My wife was even more disappointed, but she understood. And I came back and went right to work. Every studio musician ends up having multiple rigs. In the 90s, I used my Naylor SuperDrive 60 a lot. I ended up getting 3 of them because I had one at Cartage, one at home, and one for the trunk of my car. And the one at Cartage would be delivered for that setup. The one in my car would go when I would go into somebody's home studio and just bring it in with no cartage. The one at home would be for my home studio. Now, an example of this leapfrogging that had to happen, one day I did a Home Depot commercial at the Village down in Santa Monica. They brought the cartage rig down for that. And then I went right to John Keene's house in Hancock Park and did an episode of CSI. I had stuff in the trunk of my car and my beat pedal board for that. And then while I was doing that session, they moved the rig over to Kenny Edmonds' Babyface's studio because I had to go then. That was my third destination that day, and do a Jamie Foxx solo record. There's a studio here in LA that we all love. It's called Henson. It has 4 rooms. It used to be called A&M because A&M Records owned it, and A&M was that facility and all the other buildings around that facility. Anyway, I used to work there all the time. John Shanks had his own room, Studio C at Henson, for I think 12 years, did a lot of big records there. There were big records being done in all the rooms. I was there one day in Studio D working for Alanis Morissette. I think one of the things we did that day was a cover of Seal's Crazy, which is pretty cool if you want to check it out. Anyway, I was there. I ran into John Shanks in the hallway. And John said, "Oh, I'm glad you're here. I need you to play on this Backstreet Boys song." And I said, "Well, I'm booked all day over in studio." "No problem. Just come over when you're done." So I might have been 10 or 10:30. Now, luckily, John has a lot of guitar gear. He had 2 rooms going with guitar setups in each room. I just was able to walk in, set up in front of his pedal board, and do the work. But it made for a very, very long day. And the next day, I remember, was very intense too. So that's another reason, no matter how tired you are or how burned out you are, you just rise every day, every night. Here's a quick reminder. We're giving away a brand new collection of 30 free guitar lessons. Click the link below for instant access. Now, all this being said, I remember being at the Bennett House in Franklin, Tennessee, doing a record with Paul Lime and Dan Huff and some other amazing Nashville musicians. And Paul Lime said, I used to live in LA, which he did. He moved to Nashville, and he said, we actually like to see our families. And so we don't overwork like you guys do. And one of the things he preferred about Nashville, this 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3-hour session block thing, kind of protected everybody. And Nashville's still that way. And I remember him saying, we like to see our kids. And I thought, well, yeah, I saw my kid 3 weeks ago. Just kidding, but not really. But just kidding, but not really. One afternoon in 1998, I got to play on a song called Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls. It turned out to be a really big song, something I'm really proud of. Glad to be part of it. That day, I met Rob Cavallo. That started one of my biggest runs of work that has lasted to this day. Now, Rob liked to work long hours, and we would do record projects, and he would start at 1 in the afternoon, generally work till 1 in the morning. That was his thing. Now, it was intense at times during the day, but you would get a break now and then when they did lots of keyboard overdubs or percussion overdubs, or maybe a scratch vocal with the artist, which they would allow plenty of time to do, or even when Rob wanted to play guitar and do some overdubs himself. It was done kind of family style, everybody together doing this record and having fun, but also working hard. Well, he wouldn't work on weekends, so I booked sessions on the weekends, and he wouldn't work in the morning, so I booked my other clients in the morning. I had a home studio, so I would book a client at 10 a.m. for a 2-hour session, go to Rob's at 1, work all day, work all week with sessions in the mornings, long days at Rob's, whatever project he was doing, Josh Groban or Meatloaf or whatever, which are two very different artists, but we did them anyway. And then on weekends, I would work Saturday and the first half of Sunday. I would give my wife the second half of Saturday and Sunday when I could. But that was a run that lasted a very, very long time. And I tell you, I couldn't do it again. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I was living on the edge of burnout the whole time. But as I said, the people were great. The music was great. And you just can't quit when you're in this position. I guess I just felt a real sense of gratitude and a responsibility and an obligation to rise up no matter what and never take anything for granted. So eventually I got so accustomed to overbooking myself, I actually double booked myself on 2 records at the same time. Now, there was a bit of an art to this. Rob Cavallo had become chairman of Warner Brothers Records. He was still producing almost full-time at the same time. He was double booking himself, essentially. So maybe that's why I got away with it. Anyway, I was doing a record with Jason Mraz, with Joe Ciccarelli producing in 2009. It's called Love is a 4-Letter Word, really a beautiful record. And we were doing it at Sunset Sound. And then Rob Cavallo called me from his office at Warner Brothers and said, I need you to join me on Shinedown at Ocean Way during these dates. And I realized it was the same dates. And I said to Rob, well, I'll do Jason in the morning, and then I'll walk down the street, it's like 7 blocks, and join Shinedown if I can just show up maybe at 3 in the afternoon, knowing full well I was not going to show up till between 5 and 7. But because Shinedown was somewhat self-contained, I was betting that Rob would forgive me for showing up late every day. So I made the deal. Rob was totally annoyed, but he understood. I wanted to hold on to this Jason Mraz record because it was just so beautiful. I really have to thank Joe Ciccarelli and Jason Mraz for letting me leave early every day, walk down Sunset Boulevard, where I have to thank Rob Cavallo and Shinedown for allowing me to show up late every day, plug into a loud Marshall, and play a very different style of guitar and get my work done. Studio days were always booked with 12-hour lockouts. So the idea was, in order to get the most out of that expensive studio day, you actually had to be there 12 hours working. And so I totally understand that. And a lot of this comes from the film industry. When you look at a film like Dune, any film out there is being made with 16-hour days. Principal actors have a door-to-door limit to the hours they work. I did a film with Al Pacino once, and it's called Danny Collins. Actually a good small movie if you want to check it out. Anyway. The actors had a deal where it was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. door to door. And they do that to protect themselves because I was there working many hours after that because I was a union musician and my parts were not that important. My time on screen was not that important. They had us work super late. The crew works from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. perhaps, but the actors have a contract that says 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. door to door. I moved to LA in 1980 and started working right away. I did a lot of rehearsals, gigs, master demos in 24-track studios, and all this led to some records. I did Bon Jovi. I did John Waite. I did 4 Rick Springfield records and 4 world tours with Rick. I did a Kenny Loggins record. I did a Crowded House record that I really love. All of this was good work and hard work, and I did every gig I could possibly do. I took every live gig, I took every session, every rehearsal, but I never got burned out because the nature of it was somewhat seasonal and sporadic. I did notice that at the highest levels, the people in the studios I was working with were working incredibly hard and working very, very long hours. Then what happened in around 1990, I graduated, as it were, and started working in these situations with these people every single day. And so I would show up and work with really inspired, talented, motivated, energetic, committed, focused people 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day. And I realized at that point that in order to stand the heat in this kitchen, I would have to have a whole new level of commitment. I have to say that I always felt that burnout was a luxury that I absolutely could not afford. I was probably burned out quite a bit of the time, but it didn't matter. The remedy, the antidote, I was in rooms with some of the most talented, resourceful, energetic, motivated, smart people in music production that you could possibly want to work with. And that just forced me to rise to the occasion. Hey guys, a lot of the time YouTube will bring you my videos even though you're not subscribed. If you get the chance, click this subscribe button and ring the bell.